let's go briefly to the NBA. And there was a trade made today, and it was the Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, Chris Paul, getting traded from Oklahoma City to the Phoenix Suns, him and Abdel Nader, for Kelly. I'm going to read off the names. Kelly Oubre Jr.,
Why?
Ricky Rubio, I know, Ty Jerome.
Ricky Rubio, they still talking about that cat?
He's all right. He started this year. He's all right. He's all right. But remember,
he was supposed to be more than all right. That's what I was saying.
He was supposed to be a superstar. Yep. He's all right. He's a solid start is what he is. And then they get a 2022 first-round pick the Suns are sending to Oklahoma City. So, look, Oklahoma City starting all over. They got a young coach. They're building around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And for them, they get a bunch of assets. Kelly Oubre can play as well. And for Phoenix, I do think, Rob, Phoenix has a good shot at making the playoffs. They'll fight for that 6th, 7th, 8th seed. I think that Chris could have the similar impact he had in Oklahoma City, where he helps improve the team. He brings winning pedigree, winning mentality, and he can do it and still play well without getting in the way of Devin Booker. Booker will still be the leading scorer, the superstar, and DeAndre Ayton can develop as well. So they're not contenders by any stretch of the imagination, and it's not guaranteed they'll make the playoffs. But I do think this helps Phoenix, and it's a good move.
Not if you're Chris Paul. Basically, Chris, you've been put out to pasture. Phoenix is where people go. He was put out
to pasture last year, too.
No, but that team had been making the playoffs. The Suns haven't been making the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
in a decade, yep.
It's been a long time. There's a little bit different, and I get it. People didn't expect that, OKC would do what it did, and I'll give you that. But Phoenix, even with their nice showing in the bubble, Chris, and what happened, and playing games where there's no pressure and you could just kind of go out and play in like a neutral gym. You're not going into these arenas with fans where, sometimes you tighten up and you're not as good. I just think if I'm Chris Paul and I see everybody else going around trying to, be on a contender at least your last couple of years to win a championship, I wouldn't be that happy about it. I mean, I'm not saying he's belly aching or, he's going to get his money. He's got 2 years left or whatever. But he ain't getting any younger. He's getting older, and his opportunities are drying up.
No, I agree with you on a few fronts. Number one, people are making a little too much, maybe a lot of too much, out of the 8-0 run in the bubble.
Right. Okay. Come on, Chris.
I mean, you mentioned all the, there's no crowd. They're
not playing for anything.
Right. Right. There's no – and here's the thing. When you look at those games that they won, now they did legitimately beat Dallas once and the Clippers once. And then they beat Washington. But you look at the rest of their games, and Dallas, OKC, Dallas the second time they beat them, and then several of the others, Philadephia, they were sitting their top players most of those games. Some of them sat the entire game. Some of them sat, like Chris Paul played 24 minutes one game against Phoenix, and the next four best players didn't play at all. Luka played 13 minutes. Kristaps Porzingis was out when they got beat by him the second time. So, I mean, you have to be careful making too much of that 8-0 start. So I agree with you there. And then with Chris Paul, look, he's being a good soldier. He was a great soldier in OKC. And he didn't complain. He mentored the young guys, which is what I expect him to do in Phoenix. But you are right in that he certainly would have much rather playing for a championship. Rather playing for a championship.
And there's nothing wrong with that. A player of his caliber and the teams that he's been on, failed attempts, in L.A. with the Clippers, failed attempts in Houston. I mean, it ain't like he never made the playoffs or he's Tracy McGrady's career. I mean, he's been on good teams, Chris, that had a shot, right? Had he been healthy.
Now he's got to settle for small victories, right? Let's make the playoffs.
And ultimately, it ain't about me. It's about all these young cats that are on the team, right?
Yeah, and I wonder if and look, all credit to him. But I and this is smart, but a lot of his really going along with all of this might have to do with him being the president of the Players Association. You know, he has to set an example. He has to be a good soldier, which is what he's done. But in your heart of hearts, you know you're not, you don't have a chance of winning a championship. Not a chance. And you, like you said, you see Harden trying to get to a team that can win it. You see LeBron, they're set up with the Lakers. You see the Clippers and all these other teams and guys your age that are setting up to play for real titles. And you're playing for kind of moral victories. But, hey, he's getting paid handsomely to do it. He can help these young guys. And that's the attitude you have to have, Rob. Let me look at take the positive out of it. Let me take a victory in helping Devin Booker become a superstar, helping DeAndre Ayton become an all-star, and making the playoffs. All right, we know that James Harden and especially Russell Westbrook won out of Houston, but Harden, there were reports that he was locked in for the season in Houston, even as Westbrook was ready to leave. And now, Rob, the latest from Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN is that Harden is focused on getting traded to Brooklyn. And they offered, here's how focused he is. Houston, now Harden's already got 3 years, $131.5 million left on his deal, okay? Remember that. Mm-hmm. They offered him a 2-year extension worth $100 million.
And he said no?
And he said, no, I want to go to Brooklyn. It's a lot into this.
He sounds like the Beastie Boys right now. No sleep till Brooklyn.
No money till Brooklyn.
That's a classic song right there.
Yes. Beastie Boys were nice. He wants a ring badly. But yeah, so what I'm told that now this might change things because this drives the point home. But I was told that Houston today that they're more focused on settling the Westbrook thing and trading him. And they're not, to this point, they really haven't seriously considered trading Harden. Now, maybe this will change things. Rob, a lot is riding on this. And we'll get into the, later on in the week, Harden, Kyrie, KD, how that will work together. But remember, Harden has 3 years left on his deal, Rob. If Houston trades him, nothing is ever off the table anymore. No. Right? We've seen guys, they're in their last year of their deal. They got leverage. They demand a trade. You got to move them. Maybe with a year left. Maybe, right? If because then you can threaten to leave in free agency for nothing. 3 years?
Right. The ball is in Houston's court. He has no leverage. He's paid. He's got a long-term, 3 years, a long-term contract, and then and he can't do anything. He's there as long as they want him there.
They could actually do that with both of them. Right. Westbrook's got the same contract. So this is going to be interesting. Raphael Stone, first-year GM. You want your first trade to be you traded James Harden for Brooklyn spare parts?
Good luck, and don't buy a house in Houston is what I would be saying to him.
Rent.
You better get an apartment.
Longtime colleague of mine, former basketball opponent when we were younger, Bleacher Report senior writer, FS1 NBA analyst, friend of the Odd Couple, Ric Bucher. What's up, bruh?
Yo.
Gentlemen, how are you? I do have to say, the immediate tell by Parker. We get the news. What would he do with $50 million in a club? We didn't specify what kind of club. But Parker
we know. Everybody
goes
knows.
To $1 million worth of singles. Right. We now know what kind of club we were talking about. You could have left it a little mysterious, and that wasn't the first place I went. But thank you for clarifying, Rob Parker, without saying almost a word.
No doubt about it, Rick. But you got to remember, tonight is a Magic City Monday, and if you know Atlanta, you know Atlanta. Magic City is
this is part of his persona, Rick.
You know,
they've got a special on the lemon pepper wings. That's
right.
Is that what happens on Mondays?
Oh, yeah. Anytime you could get some food there. The food is good there. No doubt about it. All right.
All right, Rick, look, obviously everything about Houston and James Harden and all that. I want to get to whether or not you think the Nets can even offer them a good deal, compared to what
Wait a minute.
everybody else
Before
could
you
offer.
answer, Rick, here we go. This is for you.
Yeah.
No sleep till Brooklyn, Rick.
Right. Beastie Boys.
All right. Go ahead.
All right, so here's the question, Rick.
Yeah.
What kind of fit is this in Brooklyn? Harden, Kyrie, Durant. How good do you think it will work? Obviously, it's incredible talent. But talk about the fit before we get to the other stuff.
Well, look, I don't see the fit. I mean, everybody. I think it was Josh Hart who suddenly has become like an oracle when it comes to commenting on things. He was suggesting that if those three get together, that it's over, and you might as well just hand them the championship.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, and I don't.
I'm with
That's
you,
when
Rick.
the rumor first came out that Harden wanted to go to the Nets. I don't agree. I just, as we know, we've seen talent come together. We've seen great talent come together, and as a regular season, yes, can be formidable. As a playoff team, I think when you put those three ball dominant guys together, and you have a brand new coach in Steve Nash, and I like the coaching staff that they've put together there.
Right.
And the amount of money that would be invested in those three guys, one, you're starting from scratch, and two, I don't see how it works. Which one of those guys is going to be the playmaker for the other two?
Right.
That's where, Kyrie Irving is listed as a point guard. James Harden is listed as a point guard at times. But I would probably look to those three. I'd probably say Kevin Durant would be the best playmaker among the three. And the fact that the idea that you play through him all the time doesn't seem to be logical or likely.
Right.
And
that would
then,
take away his greatest strength.
Yeah, and then I've heard that Kyrie's not that wild about Harden may want to go there, and KD may want him to go there. I have yet to hear that Kyrie is on board with those guys coming together because, let's face it, I mean, one of the things that Kyrie has wanted to do is to be recognized as a leader and as a primary guy. Well, just based on individual abilities and resumes to this point, Kyrie's now fighting James Harden as far as...
He would be third, period.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, come on. Harden's better.
Exactly.
Even though Kyrie's won a championship and had a big hand in it.
Yeah, but Harden's better.
No, I get that, but I'm just saying Kyrie did help win a championship.
Right.
He did, but he was the go-to guy, but he wasn't the main guy. Like James Harden, whatever they accomplished in Houston, they did it with James as the main guy.
No, I got it.
So I just...
Rick, you said something interesting, though, because we know how close KD and Kyrie are. And I'm with you. Do you know or have you been told by some sources or something that Kyrie is a little apprehensive about this? Because I would be surprised that KD would be pushing this. I know he's got his own relationship with Harden too, but you know what I mean? That he would be pushing this without Kyrie being like totally on board.
Well, it's one of those things. Yes, I mean I've heard it from a place. I haven't heard it to the point that I would report.
Right.
Kyrie is objects to this happening. But look, KD trying to bring this together, trying to convince Kyrie that Harden should come there. Part of it is creating the avenue for Harden to get there. And then the second part is, whatever objections Kyrie might have, trying to smooth those over. We're not at the point now where it's going to happen. And then we're going to hear, that KD has to convince Kyrie that it's the best thing. We're not even close to that happening. I think it's just a matter of, both of you guys know how this works. These guys work out. They're playing games. They start, hey man, it'd be great to play together. Same as with KD and Kyrie.
Right.
There's the genesis of the idea, and now we're in a place with the NBA where when stars get an idea, then they try to ultimately make it happen, and that's where we are. And, as interesting as him going to Brooklyn, and I don't know ultimately if they can pull that off. But you started off by saying, could they make a fair deal for it? Well, when a guy says this is the only place I'm going to go and I don't want to be here, then a lot of times.
But he's got 3 years left. And I'm sure you've talked because I've talked with some guys around the league who are like, look, the precedent that this would set. Right, we've seen guys with a year in the last year of their deal, with a year left on their deal, force a trade. 3 years left.
3 years would be would be something. Hey,
yeah, well, but we were, look, Anthony Davis signed his extension in New Orleans, and it wasn't too long after that we started hearing rumblings. It wasn't specific Lakers or whatever, but it was rumblings of, I don't know that I want to be here.
Right.
So I don't know how much of a precedent it is. I mean, obviously it's extending the precedent, but it's where we are. It's where we are with superstar players. And I think the most amazing part for me is we see, and I immediately thought this was Daryl Morey leaving and Mike D'Antoni leaving and Russell Westbrook and James Harden looking at the team and going, hey, look, no offense to Steven Silas or Raphael Stone, but we don't want a starter kit. We were playing for a championship, and no matter how much you regard Steven Silas or Stone, it's like these guys are brand new at the job. What's our expectation that they're going to be able to make the moves necessary for us to leapfrog the Lakers? But what I hear is that. And we know how much politics and political position had to do with the boycott and the protest during the bubble. I'm hearing that Tillman Fertitta's strong Republican support and donations is one of the things that's contributing to this dissatisfaction, and that those two are not the only ones who want out of Houston. Lesser players are of the same mind. There's a revolt here because they look at they look at Fertitta as a guy who supports the current president.
Right. Wow, that is interesting. Hey, Rick, real quick on the draft, is it a foregone conclusion that LaMelo Ball is going to be the first overall pick or not?
I would expect that to be the case. I will tell you that, from the people that I'm talking to around the league, that's one of their first questions, who's going to be the number one pick? But because it hasn't been Minnesota hasn't made it clear what they're going to do. Ultimately, they would love to move the pick for a proven veteran player, as would the Golden State Warriors. But on the other side of the equation, the reason they want to move them is because everybody knows in this draft there are no guarantees. There are no guaranteed guys.
Right.
There is concern about Anthony Edwards and how hard he plays. What kind of I've been told there's some character issues. And so you add that with being the number one pick and the license that you get from being the number one pick. I just think if I'm reading tea leaves on the way people have talked about LaMelo and Anthony Edwards, and specifically Anthony Edwards, I get the sense that LaMelo Ball will be the number one pick by default.
I like Weissman in Golden State. I mean, I'm not saying he's not a sure bet. Right, yeah. I think he'd be what they need. You know what I mean? If I could get a really good proven player, for him, I'd do that. But I'm just saying he seems to be a good fit for them.
He's a good fit from a basketball standpoint, and there's also the feeling of the concern about, are we going to have an ego problem, or is the guy going to be willing to fit in? There's more concerns about that with LaMelo and Anthony than there are about Wiseman. Again, I'm relying on people who have been scouting these guys and researching them for a while. I don't know any of this firsthand, but that's what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing that Golden State's pretty much locked in, and that's what they're going to do. Again, unless they can ultimately move the pick and get somebody right away, because that's the question. I mean, and it's why this draft is so uncertain. I mean, we have we have such a small book on every one of these guys at the top. Anthony Edwards has probably the deepest resume simply because he played the entire year for Georgia.
Right.
I mean, that tells you how thin the resumes are.
All right, Ric Bucher, Bleacher Report.
Thanks,
Great
buddy.
stuff, man. We appreciate the insight.
Gentlemen, always good to be with you.
All right, Rick. Peace.